Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out on a stormy night. Hopefully it's going to turn to rain, not snow. Very kind of you to be with us at the 2022 annual meeting of the Brookline School District. Please join me, if you would, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're here to do our business relative to our Brookline School District. Our school board is here to my right. They consist of, raise your hand, Kenneth Haig, Aaron Saris, Rebecca Howie, Karen Jew, Allison Marsano. And I think about coming home from work, sick and tired of dealing with bosses and fellow workers and employees and clients, and it's cold and it's dark, and these guys do that, and then they come home, and then they have to go out again to do what they can do to help this $10 million corporation work. Now, you don't have to agree. We reserve the right to disagree with their opinions, but I think we all have to be very grateful for the work they do. Could we hear it for them? Thank you. How many first-time meeting goers do we have here? Okay, so that determines how much of an explanation I'm going to give. Not too much, because not too many of you. But the basic function today, and it's different from town meeting, is that we will take up the issues in your probably, let me see what materials you have, guys. Hold up, what you got? Yeah, from the SAU. We'll be going through those warrant articles one at a time. We don't have a motion under each one as we do in town meeting. All we're doing is discussing the article one at a time. You're allowed to make amendments to the article. And when the process is over and the article is in the final form which you want it to be in, we just move on to the next article. And these articles in their final form go on to the ballot. The voting is May 8th. You don't vote tonight. This is what I say? Yes, March 8th. Sorry, that's my brother's birthday. It's his fault. March 8th. So that's when the decisions are made. And I'm sure I'll lapse into the normal, is there a motion? Sometimes, so forgive me, just remind me. Let's see. Oh, yes. At the co-op, the moderator has a session at the beginning where he has the group approve the rules. He tells the rules, they approve the rules. I don't have that kind of attention span, so the rules are in our town reports, which don't exist yet, but every year it has this is last year's, and it has the rules by which this meeting is run. They are your rules, and you're entitled to change the rules, and I'm obliged to go along with whatever changes you want to make within the limits of the law. For instance, we have a new rule for the last 2 years, a 5-minute limit on a speaker. I didn't, whether or not I disagreed with it, you guys voted for it, so it became a rule. So that's how it works. We're going to take these one at a time. We're not going to approve them. We're going to discuss the articles. If you want to make changes to the articles, you may, both to the petitioned articles at the end and the prior articles before that, all subject to amendment. And when we're done discussing them, they will appear in the final form, in that form, on the ballot. I hope that's clear. Make me make it clear if it's not some other day. Let's see. A couple of things I wanted to say there's a limit to your ability to amend. This is this SB2 system, this official ballot referendum system, an alternate to the town meeting system that governed until you guys voted to change it. You can amend, but the law strictly says you cannot eliminate the subject of the article. You cannot eliminate. There's been litigation on that. It's a fuzzy line. At what point have you tweaked it sufficient to eliminate the subject matter that was in that original article? Well, that's a judgment call. We'll see if we have to do that tonight. Suffice it to say that theoretically you can't eliminate the subject, for instance, by just putting no in, a negative in. You can tweak it, but you can't eliminate the subject matter proposed in the article under the SB2 system. I guess I've talked enough, and you have a lot of work to do, so why don't we start? And you guys are going to be looking at the SAU's booklet. Thank you very much for that. Article 1 is for March 8. That's the balloting that will be done to choose your officers. So we close under Article 1, reserving that for another day, and we open up under Article 2. And as it reads, and I'm going to read it, forgive me, I won't read them all. This article will be null and void if Article 3 passes. To see if the Brookline School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,500,000 for the purchase and installation of an ADA-compliant elevator and related entryway security improvements for Richard Mahakian Memorial School as recommended by the Brookline School District Facilities Committee, and to authorize the issuance of $1,500,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA, Chapter 33, and to authorize the school board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to raise and appropriate the sum of $37,500 for the first year's principal and interest payment from taxation for debt service payments payable on such bonds or notes issued during the 2022-23 fiscal year. 3/5 ballot vote is required because it's a bond. It's not a simple majority. That's the law. Estimated tax impact, 5 cents per thousand value. The school board recommends the appropriation 500. The finance committee recommends the appropriation 300. Let's start talking. No motion. Anybody like to speak to the article? If there is no discussion, I'll move on to the next article. I knew I could get you to do it.
I guess my only discussion is as the parent of a child who has needed an elevator at RMMS for the past...
Can folks understand? I can't. You got it? It's my ears, and you go right ahead. Forgive me for interrupting. Sorry? Oh, yes, of course. And I should ask you your name and your address, please.
Bertie McFarland and 16 Pigeon Hill Road in Brookline.
Do we have a clerk? We don't have a clerk. There's always been a problem with clerks. We have a step in. Thank you very much. So were you able to understand the name?
BRITTANYMACFARLAND.
Beautiful. Go for it.
I just wanted to say that as a parent who has a child who's in a wheelchair, who has not had access to the bottom floor at RMMS for the past 5 years, that I think it's really important that we as a town support this article for future children. For the past 5 years, he's had to go outside, regardless of the weather, away from, separate from his classmates who can use the interior stairwells to get down to the first floor. I mean, except for the time when everyone was at home for COVID. But, and I think there's other ADA compliance issues that we should be addressing at the school as well, including the fact that there's no handicap stall in the boys' bathroom on the right wing of the school. But I think this is a good start to get the school up to date for current standards.
Thank you very much. Further discussion?
Hi, Eric Power, 12 Westview Road, Brookline. I had a question about the tax impact We're just showing the first year, but that's an interest-only payment. Wouldn't it be appropriate to show the second year impact when there's actually also to show the complete cost that would be much higher in the succeeding years?
You're asking that question of me, a judgment call, I suspect, but I don't.
I want to make a motion that we add the second year tax impact for full clarity on this bond warrant article.
Is there a second to the gentleman's motion? Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
I would just like to ask, I think that when people see it and you don't have it up on the slide, oh, you do have it on the bottom of the slide there. But if they see that tax impact in future years, it's going to be more, and I think that would be more informative to the voters as they're looking at voting on this. My other, well, I don't know if Superintendent Corey wanted to address that.
About showing the next year tax impact?
Yes.
I guess that's his call.
He's behind you.
Mr. Corey?
He's behind you.
Ooh.
There's no second.
Well, that's true.
Right,
Well,
there's no second.
the gentleman's correct. Eric, there's no second to your motion, so the issue isn't before us.
Okay. The other question I had was, we've had the school since the mid-60s, and we haven't had an elevator for, 80 years or whatever it is. What is the need that's driven this now that we didn't do this previously, and why do we want to spend $1.5 million on an elevator this year?
Thank you, sir. Anybody like to address that point?
Just to clarify a couple things, the contingency article that we're talking about is a bond article, and it is the request for the minimal needs, $1,500,000, to take care of the ADA compliance. In another moment, we're going to speak to the next article. To Eric's point, the fact that we haven't had an elevator, first of all, has limited the use of that square footage on the bottom floor. As the parent spoke of, their child has had to go outside and come back in. We believe at this time we need to upgrade the school to meet ADA compliance, because we continue to see students come to us with a variety of needs, and it's our obligation to meet those needs. So this will open up a wealth of square footage, provide us with ADA compliance, so a student who happens to be in a wheelchair or have another difficulty can access the entire building during their educational career and not be limited to select locations.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions on Article 2? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 3, ladies and gentlemen, which reads, to see if the Brookline Town School District, will vote to authorize the school board to enter into a 18-year lease purchase agreement for $2,485,280 to finance the acquisition and installation of energy conservation equipment and related energy, ADA, and security improvements at the Richard Mahakian Memorial School and Captain Samuel Douglas Academy, as recommended by the Brookline School District Facilities Committee, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $177,500 for payments due under the lease purchase agreement during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. This lease purchase agreement will contain an escape non-appropriation clause. Article 2 will be null and void if this article passes. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact 25 cents per thousand. The school board recommends the appropriation 500. The finance committee recommends the appropriation 120. Discussion.
Before we get into your comments, I just wanted to go over some of the specifics around this. The capital lease would have us doing LED lighting at RMMS, efficiency controls for our boilers. We would again have the $1.5 million that you just saw in the previous bond article, which is the elevator, lower level renovations, a new security office so that when people enter that main entrance, there'd be somebody there to greet them and log them in. and then ventilations, and the current library on the first floor would become 2 classrooms, meeting the state standards for classrooms. And then the new library would go into the ground floor. At CSDA, we'd be doing LED lighting, efficiency controls just to the boiler. And then we would put in a new central boiler. The boiler system here is at the end of its useful life. So that's how we arrive at the $2,485,280. If this article were to fail, then the contingency article of Article 2 would come into play. And at this point, I'd turn it back to the moderator and open up for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Brian Rader, 31 Mason Road, and also the chairman of the Finance Committee. I just wanted to clarify here because the wording of the recommendations at the end is a little misleading, I think. The Finance Committee does not recommend this warrant article on a vote of 1 to 2. So you just kind of have to understand how to interpret that, but I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. I was surprised I didn't pick it up on that occasion. Throughout this, it says that it uses the word recommends. Probably some lawyer told him to do that.
Well, we've had these discussions in the past, and we always have changed it in the past, and apparently didn't do that this year. But in the past, we've always changed to say not recommended. And there are some important warrant articles later on that were like unanimously opposed, but because the wording says recommends, that kind of gives the impression of the opposite of the reality of it.
Doesn't make much sense to me. Thank you, sir.
Eric Power, Westview Road. I had a question why we have a lease purchase agreement on this article. The previous one was a bond. And so if we have a lease of some HVAC equipment, some LED lighting, an elevator, how can you have an escape clause? That stuff gets installed, it gets replaced other equipment. It's not like it's a vehicle you can turn in. So what's the practicality of an escape clause, and why are we doing an escape clause versus a bond? Because you can't really escape from it once you've installed it very easily. Can someone answer that?
Thank you, sir.
The escape clause is required to be in the lease. So that comes right from bond/lease counsel. In the 2 different articles, one was a bond because in the Article 2, that's more brick and mortar. Those are building renovations, and the majority of that warrant article is construction, so it aligns better with a bond. The majority of this article is in machinery and in those type of things with regard to ventilations and things, and a lease was very appropriate for that. And that's the distinction why we chose what we did for each one.
That still doesn't answer the question on a non-appropriation. If we have installed equipment and it's not appropriated, what is the course of action? It seems to me like this article should be a bond. I mean, there's a bonds article contained in it. 1.5 million of this is already in another article as a bond, so showing that it is something that's bonded. So why are we doing a lease purchase agreement? It doesn't seem to be the proper mechanism for the warrant article.
Thank you, sir. We understand your opinion, and I think the gentleman answered with a different opinion. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Joseph Hartman, Mountain Road. Couple items on this. What you have energy savings listed, is that per year?
I can't hear him.
Could you just repeat?
Is that energy savings per year?
The energy savings is per year. The low number of the controls is because the controls would be just installed in phase 1, but in subsequent years in RMMS, when the ventilation systems are updated, because we're doing the boilers in CSDA and primary ventilation in RMMS, that energy savings would go up.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah,
that is per year.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at a return on investment for this type. And then sort of a follow-on to the gentleman before me. I guess I don't, so all of this would be leased at this point under this article. And is it, I guess I don't understand why, when you say lease, that It just seems like.
Lease is the borrowing mechanism that we are utilizing because there are about $2.5 million worth of projects in this article. Some of those will not be able to be accomplished in 10 weeks of summer. So by being in a lease, you are able to generate some revenue off the money you haven't expended, and we're able to carry it forth through probably 2 summers to complete phase 1 of this.
Okay. I don't totally follow, but okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir, and I've neglected to ask people to say their name. I love your first name, sir.
Web Scales, 49 DuPont Gould Road. Just to dot the I and cross the T here, there is no bond in warrant Article 3, correct?
I didn't understand what you said. Did you understand?
Article 3 is a lease. The contingency article is a bond.
Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 3? Hearing none, we'll move that along to the ballot for March 8. We turn to Article 4, which reads to see if the Brookline School District will vote to approve the cost items included in a 4-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Brookline School Board and the Brookline Education Support Staff Association for 22-23, 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26 school years, which calls for the following increase in support staff salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. And I won't read the numbers, you can see them. Discussion? And I might say that the law, this is one of the occasions the law says you're not allowed to amend the numbers. It's a result of collective bargaining agreement in good faith between 2 parties. This is what they agreed to. Sir.
Yes, Eric Power, Westview Road. I had a question about, this is the first time I think we've seen in SAU 41 that we've actually done a standardized contract of more than 3 years. We're actually going to 4 years now, and I'd like to hear an explanation for the school board why they, or the superintendent, why they thought this was appropriate. It's a pretty long contract, and you know, as we've seen in the past few years, you might not know what happens in world events. We might have a pandemic or something.
That wouldn't happen. Thank you. Point made, sir.
We are currently finishing up a 4-year standardized contract with this same union. So 4 years with the Besser group, which is your secretaries, your paraprofessionals, and your custodians, has been the norm since I've been here in Brookline.
Eric, for me, I screwed up, you guys. I didn't read the rest of the warrant. You're very polite, but don't let me get away with stupid things like that. Oh, are you laughing? I'm going to go through the motion anyhow, forgive me. And further, to raise and appropriate a sum of $58,299 for the first fiscal year, 22-23 school year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in support staff salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those who would be paid at current staffing levels. Estimated tax impact 8 cents per thousand. The school board recommends this Article 5-0. The Finance Committee does not recommend this Article 3-0. Is that what you said earlier?
The slide has something that says does not recommend.
Eric, say it again. What did you say?
I'm just saying what the slide says. The slide says does not recommend Finance Committee.
Okay, so the correct position of our Finance Committee is recommend 3-0-0. Yes. Thank you, sir.
What I wanted to also mention, and if you look at the details of this contract, it's a very expensive contract in terms of percentages. If you look at how much folks are going to be getting under this over the 4 years, it's going to be 4 or 5% in general. And if you look at the what the net impact would be over 4 years, there's going to be some employees that make more than a 40% raise. Many will get more than a 30% raise, and almost all of them will get at least a 20% raise over that 4-year time. I don't know many people here that are getting 20, 30% raises over 4 years. So I'm concerned about the expense to the taxpayers for these very large guaranteed increases that are being locked in this year for 4 years. I think we need to really look at that. You can see here that the table, and I got a copy of the table. Thank you, Superintendent Corey, for sending them to me. I looked at the pay tables and analyzed them, and you can see that they go up. And it's actually a low estimate that's in this article, because it's assuming the New Hampshire retirement system doesn't go up anymore after this 2 years, which is really probably an inaccurate assumption. You can't make a real assumption on it, but it's been going up exponentially. So these numbers are on the low end of what it will actually cost us, because it doesn't take into account the future increases in the New Hampshire retirement system that go up every 2 years.
I just want to quickly respond to the numbers piece of the conversation with kind of who this represents for parents here. We know that these are our custodians, and especially over the course of the past couple of years, the work that they've had to do. And it's our paraprofessionals. This is a group of individuals which we struggle with having enough of in our schools. We have vacancies continuously with paraprofessionals, and we need, these are critical staff for our schools. Anyone who has had a student work with a para knows how important they are. So anything that is indicating less of a value than what they represent would not be responsible on our part in terms of negotiating that contract. So we felt very comfortable with accepting this.
I'd just like to point out to the taxpayers that you see the increases per year, but those accumulate. So you're looking at this driving up the operating budget in the end by over $200,000. And if you look at the amount, if you vote yes on this, you're spending over $500,000 over the next 4 years. So those are not small numbers when you add them up, because you have to take year one and you pay that for year one, and year two you pay year 1 and 2, year 3 you're paying 1, 2, 3, year 4 you're paying 1, 2, 3, 4. When you add that all up, it's over $500,000. So I would urge people to vote no on this, and let's get a more competitive contract for our support staff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm down here. My name is Jessica Hartman. I'm at 51 Mountain Road. And I just wanted to first say thank you to Mrs. Saris and Mrs. Howie for your service. I know that you're leaving this year, and so we appreciate it. And you've worked very hard and taken a lot of time away from your family, so thank you. And on this article in particular, I've had the pleasure of substituting in our schools during COVID. And these are the hardest working people, not taking away from our teachers, and they're amazing too. But these are the hardest working people in our building. And we lost one of the best, Wayne Gauthier, this year as a custodial staff. And last I heard, I don't know if he's been replaced, because it's very difficult to find replacements at the rate our salary is right now in Brookline. And we all know that the first step to keeping our kids healthy is keeping our buildings clean. And so that has been a huge hardship. And the paras are working so hard, and we don't have enough. And we're asking them to do a lot of double duty. And I just would say to the taxpayers, please support the people that this represents, because they've worked tirelessly always, but especially these last few years. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Joseph Hartman, Mountain Road. A couple questions on this, because it is a support staff, and it sounds like there was a wage table made available for the support staff. Is that?
Eric, can you speak to that? I'm told the answer is yes to your question.
Okay. I would just, so.
I don't think it's published on the website, but I think it could be made available if you ask the superintendent.
Okay. And I'm just curious from a standpoint of, are we competitive with like even Dunkin' Donuts? That's the biggest problem I have. Everywhere I drive, I see help wanted, 15 an hour. If we can't get somebody in here because we're at that low of a level, then, obviously we're going to lose out. to any place. I mean, it's just ridiculous right now how hard it is to get staff, and everybody's competing. So I guess it sounds like my wife just said we've lost people, and I mean, are we able to replace? Are we having any luck replacing anybody at these levels?
First of all, we did have, unfortunately, a retirement. We lost a wonderful gentleman to retirement. Okay. It took us approximately 2 to 2.5 months to find a replacement. We presently, across the SAU, are down 4 custodians and actively hiring. But many of the wages for our custodians and our paras are equaled by retail environments that have a little less stress than some of our environments, especially during COVID. So this brings us up to what we believe is competitive between the surrounding different districts, as well as those retail stores that we compete against.
Yes, ma'am.
Allison Marsano, 30 Laurel Crest. And to Mr.
You know who that
Hartman,
lady is?
she might figure it out. So to Mr. Hartman's point, no, we weren't competitive. So you could go to Target and get a better job and a better paying job with better hours and a discount and not get beaten up by children on a regular basis before you could work here. So, right, your taxes are going to go up. And these are your friends and your neighbors, and they work hard. And no, they don't get benefits. So, no, that's not even part of it. So, yeah, we brought them up. So, do I think they deserve a 20 or a 30 or a 40% increase? Yeah, actually, I thought they deserved more. But I think this is a very, very small beginning for them. And I think it's the bare minimum that we can do for them.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Bertie McFarland, Pigeon Hill Road. I also wanted to point out that I agree with what was just said, but we also have an obligation as a school district to provide paras to children with IEPs and 504s. And if we're not able to meet those needs, there could be legal repercussions that are much greater than the $500,000 that was mentioned in staff, or $200,000 in staff increases over the next few years. And I know that there are many people who have considered looking at paraprofessional jobs and been offered them in town, and they end up working at the daycares in town because they get better pay. So just kind of speaking to what she said, that these people work really hard. They have very specialized needs, especially when they're working with children with physical disabilities or other, delays, but I'm not sure, sorry. But I think that is important to know that they are following very strict guidelines and they have to be trained for the positions that they have, and they're providing a pivotal role for children to access their health care. For children to access their education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eric Power from Westview Road again. I wanted to ask a technical question. I was looking at the pay tables, and it looks like there's a new Category 8 pay table. Is there an explanation for that? Because it used to be categories 1 through 7, and I think there's a new Category 8.
In between the prior contract and this one, there was a sidebar agreement when we brought on a maintenance personnel, and so there was a shift. So that was part of a sidebar agreement.
Who gets to be in the new Category 8 versus the people that were in the 1 through 7 previously?
So the 7 goes to 8, and the maintenance was in 7, added to 7. So 7 is sort of the addition, if you will.
Okay, and there was also another question about the pay tables. Was there previously wasn't any steps for steps 8 to 12 on categories 1 to 3? Those were empty and now they're populated. So are we giving step increases to the categories 1 to 3 now above step 7?
Correct. There are additional step increases, so they don't move off the table as quickly.
So
Once again, as a method to stay competitive.
If somebody was already at the 7 and they were there for a few years, are they going to be just going to 8, or are they going to jump up to step 10, or how's that going to work?
Which one is? They go to step 10.
Okay, so those folks are going to get even larger increases than I was expecting. So there's a lot in here that's increasing the pay. So if you look at the details, you really want to check it out. So I recommend you really think about what you're voting on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I owe you another apology, folks. I should have gone through the formality of having you approve any non-Brookliner from speaking in this occasion, such as Mr. Corey. Obviously, you guys always support it, so forgive me. Gino, of course, lives in town. You live in town? Yes, so we don't have to take care of her, but he's had his shots, and so he gets to talk. Anybody else? That's Article 4. Discussion closed. Up.
Hi, everybody. Dana Ketchum, 59 Russell Hill Road, Brookline, New Hampshire. And just to Eric's point again, and I think I've raised this before under this article, where it says the estimated increases and then the total at the bottom. I really do wish that they would add those increases year over year over year so that we could see the actual total increase. So if you add 2022 and 23 to 2022 and 24, that's 58,299 plus 58,520. So that it's not really just 201, 201, 478. I just feel like that number isn't a real accurate reflection of the total. Do you understand what I'm saying? And how can that be corrected?
We have.
Hi.
Hi, Dana, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. We've discussed this in the past, you are correct. That is the way we are required by the DRA to put forth the warrant article, and we comply with that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Further discussion under Article 4? Once, twice, 3 times. Whoa, we got a winner. No. The people at home can't hear you. Come.
Jen Morrissey, Laurel Crest. I apologize. You probably covered it. I probably was spaced
Do
out.
not worry about it. Go ahead.
How many people are we talking?
Excuse.
How many staff members?
We're talking approximately 30.
So 30 staff members.
Right.
So $50,000 across 30 staff members. That's not a lot of money.
Well,
No, that's not a lot of money. That's like, if you're making $10 an hour, if you get a $2 raise, that's a 20% raise, big deal. It's $2. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Further discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, we'll move on to Article 5. I didn't screw it up, right? Is that correct? To see if the Brookline School District will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget. Not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session. I hope you guys can explain this to us. For the purposes set forth therein, totaling $10,429,549. Should this article be defeated, the default budget of $10,397,099, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law or the governing body, the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 401310 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required to pass. Estimated tax impact $9.49 per thousand. The school board recommends this Article 500. The Finance Committee recommends this Article 300. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
Just to go over a couple pieces of the operating budget. The key budget changes. First of all, it's a $403,772 increase, which is 4%. Academics is being allocated $2,500 over last year. Regular ed personnel is increasing by $51,074. Special ed personnel is $40,400. We are replacing a copier for $5,000. Shared services and software is $12,146, and facility safety is $20,200, for a total of new items of $320,000. Also, the major changes, teachers' salaries are going down. That's a contractual piece. Retirement benefits are going down because we did not have any retirements in FY23, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to thank the wonderful staff in both our buildings. They've gone through a lot in the last 2 years, and as you read all across the country, there are wealths of retirement. Our group is signed up again to do it again and have more fun next year, so I'm really thrilled with that and thankful for that. Last year, we made the determination that we would no longer keep a contingency fund because the town voted to support an unreserved fund balance, so that's a reduction. The significant driver is our special ed costs. They're going up $528,790. Those are legally mandated, and they include services, transportation, and materials for specific programming needs for the students we have in our classes. We have one new position for the program needs, which is $40,000, and then there are some other academic capital improvement things for $4,043, which amounts to the $403,772, or the 4% increase. The requirement that we have is also to provide a default budget. So to do that, we take last year's operating budget of $10,025,776. We look at anything that's required by law or contractual increases, which, as I mentioned, a significant amount of that would be special education, of $479,079. We take out any one-time FY22 expenses of $107,757, and that's how we arrive at the FY23 default budget of $10,397,099. The default budget details, we had wages and benefits increased by $10,338,000. We had special ed services and transportation increased by $471,968. The health, dental, FICA, and New Hampshire retirement went down by $13,487. Regular ed transportation went up by $10,960, and other various small amounts for $700. As you can see, the brunt of this budget is funding our special education needs. I will tell you that this budget will allow us to move forward on behalf of all children and continue to make the progress that we've been doing over the last several years. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Web scales, 49 DePaul Gould Road. Under the heading of commas save lives, could someone please help me parse this article? We talk about the default budget, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting. So we got from the default budget to the special meeting without a break. I assume we need a comma in there somewhere.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure if this answers your question, but I know that the school has the option of going default or having a special meeting.
Yes, I know what this text is supposed to say. I'm just having trouble making it say that.
Okay.
So before we turn this over to the people who aren't at this meeting and aren't going to watch the telecast and actually have to read this text in the booth, could we have a comma or a semicolon or some sort of separator between the default budget and the
So do I hear
meeting?
A motion?
I would love to make a motion. I would seek advice of counsel first.
Well, keep in mind that it's not a vote by lawyers, it's a vote by regular people. So let's write it so that...
And then a capital O for or.
I would love that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yes, sir. Oh, now you asked for it, Webb.
I did.
There should be a semicolon after the word law.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Everybody in favor of that punctuation? Any further discussion, on that very interesting motion? Hearing none, we'll put to vote. All those in favor, raise your voting cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your voting cards. Unanimous. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Eric Power, Westview Road. I'm concerned about the budget. If you look at the whole spending this year and the tax impact and the revenues, we're looking at 9.7% increase. I know we didn't have it on the slides, but this is the largest driver of that. This is 4%, but there's other warrant articles that are adding up. And so we're going to see our tax rate go up by almost 10%, which is a lot. And we do have a tax cap here in the Brookline School District of 8%. We overrode it last year. We're coming close to overriding it here again. 8% increases we should be able to stay within that, but we haven't. And I'd like to make a motion to amend this article to a new proposed operating budget of $9,867,097.
Could you give me a number again, please, sir?
$9,867,097.
Thank you, sir. Second to the motion. Thank you, sir. Excuse me? I'll second it for discussion. The young lady has seconded your motion, so any discussion on that motion?
Yes, this number is actually the pre-tax cap budget we had last year. And it's a reduction of about $562,000 from what's being proposed this year. I think it's a minor budget decrease, but I think it makes a big difference in the tax impact to people. The Brookline School District makes up almost 40% of our taxes that we pay every year, and they're going up quite a bit. So I would like for folks to think about reducing the budget and putting that new number on the ballot for folks to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for making it clear. I appreciate it. Further discussion on the gentleman's motion to amend. Yes, sir.
Joseph Hartman, Mountain Road. So if this number that was just proposed replaces the $10,429,549.
Eric, I believe that's correct. Yes, it is correct.
So then if that's defeated, the budget shall be the number that's in the text.
Thank you very much. We revert to the original number. The motion to change that number is defeated if the motion is defeated. I'm sorry, did I screw that up? Look at me, sir, please.
No,
so the gentleman is...
Let's say the number that we're looking at changing is only the 10,429.
Yes, the gentleman's motion is replace it with his $9 million number.
Okay, and then that's the only number, though, that we're talking about changing at this moment.
We're only talking about should we make that change?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm just clarifying. And then any other changes would be other motions.
Oh, sure.
Yep, okay.
Any further discussion on the... Yes, sir, please. Wherever, yep.
Thanks. So, hi everyone. I just wanted to call out a quick couple things. So, I don't disagree that the budget this year has been difficult. I think it's important to call out that from a special ed standpoint, we saw an increase of $569,000 this year. That $569,000 is mandatory. It's something that we must comply with, and it's necessary. So by lowering this by $500,000, you've essentially taken $1 million from last year's budget to this year with that line of thinking. So I would encourage you to think about that. I'd also just want to note, because we identify this as a difficult budget year, and with all the things that we have on here, we did come back together as a school board with a special meeting to remove $176,000 in addition to our original budget that we had settled on out of concern for this. So we certainly recognize the difficulties that the budget is bringing forward this year. Quite frankly, I think that this motion on the table would be very detrimental to our school system, and I strongly am opposed to this. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. What you're going to vote on is whether you want to replace the number as it was originally put together by the in the school board's warrant. That original number was $10,429,549. The question is whether you want to replace that with the gentleman's proposed number of $9,867,097. All those in favor of that change, raise your voting card. All those opposed, raise your voting cards. The vote in the negative, the motion to amend is defeated. Further discussion on Article 5. Seeing none, we'll close discussion and move on to Article 6 to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $25,000 to be added to the previously established Special Education Expendable Trust Fund. This sum to come from the June 30 unassigned fund balance surplus available for transfer on July 1, 2022. No amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated tax impact 4 cents per thousand. The school board recommends this 500. The Finance Committee recommends this Article 300. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
Web Scales, 49 DuPaul Gould Road. While I'm generally in favor of this, I have to tilt at this windmill one more time. The phrase, no amount to be raised from taxation, while technically true, is a bait and switch. This is money that would go back to reduce our taxes, which the board is going to keep for this purpose. Therefore, we as a town need to come up with $25,000 that we wouldn't otherwise have to come up with, which sounds like taxation to me. So I'm in favor of this article except for that one phrase. And from what I understand, we have to have that in there. Is that correct? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on Article 6. Seeing none, we'll close and move on to Article 7, which reads, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $75,000 to be added to the previously established School Facilities Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund. This sum to come from the June 30 unassigned fund balance surplus available for transfer on July 1, 2022. No amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated tax impact $11 per $1,000. The school board recommends this Article 500. The Finance Committee recommends this Article 300. Discussion on Article 7, please.
Eric Power, Westview Road.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to change the amount of this warrant article from $75,000 to $50,000.
I'm sorry, sir, 70 to what?
To $50,000.
To $50,000. Thank you, sir. Would you like to, well, let's see if there's a second to the gentleman's motion. There is not, sir, so we won't go further. Thank you, sir. Further discussion under Article 7? Hearing none, we'll close under Article 7, and that too will be brought forward to the ballot for March 8. Article 8. Shall the voters of the Brookline School District adopt a school administrative unit budget of $2,107,176 for the forthcoming fiscal year, in which $407,208 is assigned to the school budget of this school district? This year's adjusted budget of $2,018,210 with $389,983 assigned to the school budget of the school district will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in the school administrative unit. Estimated tax impact, I read that very poorly, you guys, but I'm not going to read it again unless you really want me to. Estimated tax impact 58 cents per thousand. The school board recommends this 500. The finance committee recommends this 300. Discussion, elucidation. You're not allowed to change the number under statute. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know I can't change the number, but I wanted to talk about this for a second.
Sure.
This SAU budget continues to go up rapidly. It had a large increase last year, I believe around 8 or 9%, another almost 8% this year. We've crossed over the $2 million mark with the over 2.1 for the proposed budget. And I'm really concerned about how much this is costing us. And I think we need to really look at, why we have to have such a large SAU. This is, we have a declining enrollment. We've had a declining enrollment, but this continues to get larger and larger. And I just think, 16, 17, 18% increase in 2 years is excessive for an administrative oversight of our 3 school districts. So I would, urge people to vote no on this to get the adjusted budget. And then we can also talk about one of the warrant articles coming up later about having Brookline potentially pull out of this SAU office arrangement because of this increase. But I wanted just folks to know that this is actually going up rapidly year after year, and we need to rein it in, and it's not reining in, so we need to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion under Article 8. Hearing none, will close. That'll be brought forward to the ballot. Let's open up under Article 9, which reads, shall the Brookline School District direct the Brookline School Board to adopt and implement a policy to ensure that each textbook or other assigned book used in the Brookline School District, as well as a copy of all professional training materials provided to teachers, administrators, and staff of the district paid with school district funds, be made available to the public at the Brookline Public Library in hard copy or electronic form, organized by grade or teacher. The school board doesn't recommend this Article 050. The middle 5 there is against, right? Okay. So there you have it. Discussion.
So regarding, for several of these warrant articles, regarding the recommendation, the phrasing that's up there right now is the school board recommends this Article 050. It really should say does not recommend. Is that something that somebody can just go off and fix, or do we need to have an official vote here to change the wording of that?
Motion would suffice.
Yep.
Motion's worded is, does the board recommend this article? And if they vote 05, that the wording should say the board voted 05 to recommend the article. So it's technically correct.
Well, let me read it. I mean, I'm not so interested in technical correct, but Joe Voter is going to get behind that curtain, and if he thinks the school board is recommending it, guess what? He and I are both going to think the school board recommended it. So let's take a look at it.
So we have changed these to say does not recommend for all the warrant articles in the last several years. This is the first time in a long time that I've seen it without the not word used.
One moment, if I may.
Yep.
Someone argue with me? I think it had, if they do not recommend it, it should say that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
No, walk me through it. I'm not there.
Can I make a clarifying suggestion? For the votes that are unanimous, instead of quoting the numbers, could we simply say the school board unanimously either recommends or does not recommend this article?
Well, we seem to have a disagreement on this recommend verb. Tom's going to bring us to the promised land.
Tom Solon, Shady Rock Road. Just for a point of reference.
Tom, would you mind? Thank you.
Tom Solon, Shady Rock Road. As a point of reference on the co-op warrant articles, the same situation will be stating the school board does not recommend this article 050. So we are going to use the phrasing that I think Brian's suggesting on the co-op ballots.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion?
Just in reference to Webb's suggestion for
What-
unanimous, there was one article that we had earlier on which the Finance Committee voted against, but it was a vote of 1 to 2. So I'd also like that to be clarified. So my question here was whether or not, if we can change this, which we have in the past, but if somebody can just go off and do that, or if we need motions to do that for the petition, for the
I
articles.
just want to deal with
Yep.
Article 9. The broader issue is another day for me. So I would love to have an advocate explain to us why it should say recommends. Please,
The board is required to make a motion in the positive, in the affirmative. So that's how they are required to vote. The vote is 0-5, so to change the vote or to change the wording does not legally represent what was there, which is what I was just confirmed with the discussion with the attorney. So,
Peter?
it's up to you, you guys.
In the past, how we resolved this is we have acknowledged that the motion was made in the meeting to recommend. If it failed, however, the reporting did not have to abide by that confusing logic. So the description at the bottom is not a statement of the motion. I'm not disputing what Assistant Superintendent Bergskog is saying, but that the note at the bottom was intended to be a statement of the outcome. And the statement of the outcome, the outcome was that the board did not recommend. And then there's a numerical data point of the vote. So I don't see that there's anything that we've historically acknowledged that requires it to be this way, but she's right. The origin of it was the motion is made in the affirmative, and that's why the statement has sometimes mirrored that.
Still over my head, one at a time. Tom, if you're done, I appreciate it.
So this 050.
No. Calm down. Get up to the mic. No dancing. No dancing. Bring it down. Tell us your name.
Jen Morrissey, Laurel Crest. It actually would be just pretty simple to do a little table, right? 0, opposed, or 0 affirm, 5 opposed, 0 abstained. Couldn't you just do a little table so it's really clear who voted what in the formatting? That would be pretty straightforward.
I'm getting old. I don't understand what you said.
But anyways, that's not what I want to talk about.
Well, then I'll ignore it.
Okay. And I'm hoping I'll slightly more prepared for this particular topic. The last one I got a little bit excited about. My apologies. But my question about this is, what problem are we solving?
Well, my personal problem here is I think 90% of the voters are going to think the school district wants this to pass. That's my personal problem with this.
I don't understand. I'm talking, what problem are we solving with this petition?
Thank you, ma'am.
We didn't, members of the public came up with this article, so we can only go by what we have in front of us. So we do not know.
Okay. Okay, so then, if I can share my perception is that we are solving a problem that does not exist. If there are people that want to understand what is being taught in the schools, there are multiple opportunities to do that. The schools host open nights where they review curriculum. The teachers specifically review what books and what topics are going to be covered. And there are parent-teacher conferences, multiple opportunities throughout the year. Projects and curricula is published on the teacher sites. I do not know what problem we're solving here.
Thank you, madam.
Now, The other thing is we just spent oodles of time tearing apart costs and expenditures on a bunch of different things. This one has like this thing, district paid with school district funds. Who's doing the work? What are we paying them? What's it going to cost? We're not going to analyze. If we're going to analyze everything like else to the nth degree, we're doing that.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Web
Web
scales,
scales.
DePaul Gould Road. I think her suggestion is a good one with respect to the numbers. If we could just expand that from straight numbers to 0 in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstained, then perhaps that would bring the clarity that we need.
So I mean, if you guys think this is fine as it is, I don't want a motion to amend. If you think it should be tweaked in some way, then you make a motion to amend, and you will vote on that motion to amend.
All right, I move that we amend this article to replace the 050 with 0 in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstentions.
So if I understand you correctly, you want to keep in the language, the school board recommends this article. Oh my God, okay. Yo.
I think that would be good.
Know why?
They can amend what's going to go in the ballot. They can amend what goes in the ballot.
Yeah. The warrant article. This isn't part of the warrant article. This is the tally. So per statute, 32.5, it's up to the board how they do it. So I'm fine with them taking the vote at the end and just saying for all of them, they can do it.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
What would you like to do, sir?
I would actually like to put this to rest and get on to the next point.
Okay. You had been speaking of a motion to amend. You want to withdraw that?
You want to make the motion to amend? Okay. I will yield to.
So he let me go.
Okay, ma'am.
Yep.
Microphone. There are people at home who, yeah.
Okay. So I hear the part about the having to put in the positive or in the positive voice. Can it just be, though, does it have to be positive? Or could it be the school board voted on this 050? Can it be neutral?
Well, my impression is that this school board and council is of an opinion that this is the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
My belief is that you guys have the right to change that. Council has suggested that I might be mistaken, God forbid. Yes?
But there's a difference between affirmative and neutral.
Say it.
The attorney
Yeah.
said we can take 0 in favor, 5 opposed, and 0 abstained.
Okay.
That's what Webb suggested in his motion.
Yes, thank you. I think so too. If I may, Mr. Corey has suggested the council has agreed with the thought that Webb was running with there for a sec, that we could, it would be proper to have a motion to amend such that instead of saying, that you can say 0 in favor, 5 opposed, 0 abstained. I'm sorry? I need you to come to the mic. I'm having enough time with the masks.
Their question is, can they remove the word recommends?
Well, in my humble opinion, you guys are in charge and you can. But council is a much brighter man than I.
Can I make an amendment to the motion?
There isn't a motion yet,
Oh.
so you'll have to make your own.
What historically, from my recollection, and to Peter's point, it would say, the last sentence, the school board does not recommend this article 050.
Oh, that's much too clear.
That would be the motion I would make. motion. I would like to make a motion that the final sentence of this warrant Article 9 read, "The school board does not recommend this Article 050."
Did you get that motion down? Would you repeat it again, please?
I just explained it.
No. I'm not sure. Say it loud, please.
The school board does not recommend this article 050. This was very difficult to make it easy, so I understand.
Mike, I got, Ken, I need you.
Please.
It's okay, the gentleman?
So the statute requires that this happens sometimes in meetings, and so everybody, it's okay. The statute requires that it contain a notation whether or not the board recommends the article, right? So it doesn't tell you exactly what it has to say. So one of the solutions is to say the school board voted not to recommend this article, and then it can say 0 in favor, 5 against, whatever the other 0 is. And then for the ones where they vote in favor, it can say the school board voted to recommend this article, 5 in favor, 0 against. The school board, in my opinion, can do that without you amending anything. I actually don't think you should be amending anything because you can amend the article, but the board really has an obligation to put its notation separate and apart from what you do tonight. So what I suggest to the moderator is that we get a vote today to support that action so the board can do it and they know that they have your blessing. Okay.
So moved.
I'm glad you guys all understand that. And would you be so kind as to restate that motion, sir?
I move that the sense of the meeting is that the school board rework the statement of approval as per the council's recommendations.
Did the clerk get that language? Would the clerk be so kind as to tell us what this motion is? And it's going to mean you're going to have to come to the microphone.
We believe the board has the power to fix this without our assistance. I vote yes.
I like to think that you guys have the power.
So what I've got is, the motion is the school board does not, oh, where am I? The school board reword the statement of approval. Did I get that? Okay.
Okay, so it's just a general fix it, not here's what we want you to do. If that's what you want, that's what we're going to do.
This is just the sense of the meeting.
If you want it to, the motion will say this is the sense of the meeting. As if, well, it's you guys do what you want, okay? So the motion on the floor is, it's a sense of this meeting that the school board should, what word did you choose? Fix the mess? No.
Just modify the sense of the meeting is that the school board should modify the notation of its recommendation next to each warrant article.
Do you adopt that language? Is there a second to that language? All those in favor of that language? All those opposed to that language? Thank you. Okay, that's good. Thank you. So that was a motion to amend, so we still haven't closed on Article 9 yet.
Good, because I have a few questions. My first is, as long as we're discussing the power of this meeting, I don't believe that this body has the power to dictate to the board to adopt policy. I don't think we can require the board to adopt policy. Can I get that assumption verified?
The article would be advisory, and I'll use an example. A number of years back, there was a vote on the Common Core, and the school board made the decision to adopt the curriculum that they chose, even though the community had said they didn't want the Common Core, because it was an advisory article.
So springboarding off of that, I would propose an amendment that this article carry a statement to that effect. Something specific like, this article is merely advisory and does not constrain the board, or some similar words. Is that a fair change? I'm getting a nod. So if somebody wants to help me with the wording, I'd be thrilled.
Listening to you, I wrote down that this motion is merely.
This article is merely advisable, advisory.
Okay. This article is merely advisory and does not constrain the board.
How about compel the board?
How about this?
Yeah.
It's really easy. I mean, typically it's just to insert the phrase, this article is advisory and non-binding on the board.
Thank
period.
you. Yes.
Help the clerk with that, please, sir. Help make sure she gets that language. Did everyone hear the gentleman's recommendation to us? Kelly, I got to have you speak in the microphone so everybody at home knows what you said.
Kelly Zacher, Cider Mill Road. I like the language. I'm wondering if it goes at the beginning of the article or at the end of the article before the school board recommendation.
The gentleman says at the end.
So can I make a motion?
Yeah,
Or do you want to make a motion?
Well, let's see.
Is there a motion needed?
I got to close on this advisory only motion first before we get it.
Let's just add that in the motion that the language shall appear at the end, prior to the school board's recommendation.
Okay, the poor clerk, she's trying to keep up. When you signal you're good, we'll proceed.
The inserted language is to be inserted prior to the school board's recommendation statement.
Okay, so is there a second to the gentleman's motion? There is. Any further discussion? Yes, sir, come right up. This is on the motion to amend, which is to change the end relative to the recommendation and saying that it's advisory only.
Yes, Eric Power, Westview Road. The contention that this would be advisory is a subject of debate up in Concord right now. There's been some discussion with the Attorney General's office, some of the state senators, state reps. So to make the blanket assumption that this would be advisory, I think is still a matter to be decided probably in the courts. So just to make that blanket assumption, I know that the attorney says that, but this is still not really known. If a duly passed warrant article is binding on a legislative body speaks, is it binding on the school board? That's still a little bit of an open question. There hasn't been a landmark case in this yet. So I just wanted to make that point. I would vote you just to leave the warrant article as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. How are we doing? Article 9. Help me out. Did we approve the gentleman's motion? Was there there was seconds. I remember that now. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion to amend? Please, yes, of course, Kelly.
Kelly Zacher, Cider Mill Road. I vote, I move the question. Make a motion to move the question.
Okay, thank you. Usually we let the people behind such a motion speak. We need a second to that motion to cut off discussion. There is a second and back.
Did we vote on this?
We did not.
So don't we, so that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Okay, but you guys in line get to speak if you want to speak to the amendment, you know? Okay. Yes, ma'am, the one behind you does. Thank you very much.
Betsy Solon, Shady Rock Road.
I didn't recognize you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. COVID. There's a part of this warrant article that people haven't addressed, and that is the part that all of these textbooks are going to be stored in the Brookline Public Library. I don't know if you've been there lately, but already much of the collection is stored in an annex. So I'm not sure how even feasible it would be to pass an article like this. The other piece is that the library has a collection development policy, so there's no guarantee that the textbooks would even fall under that policy and be allowed into the collection. So it's kind of like an unfunded mandate that they have up at the State House. I mean, it's advisory, and I guess that could pass, but there's no guarantee that it would follow. Yeah, there's a lot of RSAs that will have to be changed in order for this to pass. So that's
Understood.
my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. So we still have to effectuate the amendment, right? Any more discussion on the amendment to make the changes we heard about at the end, saying it's advisory, et cetera, and our wonderful clerk has got that down. And I would really be wrong if I didn't have her read it again. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to read that before the people vote on it.
Let's make sure I've got the right one here. The motion is, this article is advisory and non-binding of the board and to be inserted prior to the school board recommendation statement. Okay.
And just to make sure, a second again? Second to that motion? We've had a second. Can I give me a second if you did this before? Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion on that motion to amend? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of doing so, raise your voting card. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your voting card. Thank you. It's so amended. Thank you, sir. You can proceed. We're not done yet with Article 9.
So just one general comment on this, and not that I'm for it or against it in any way, but I know some people had some emotions and discussed why this would come up. And it's really, I'm sure, going back to what whoever wrote this, it's most likely just transparency. Now, the political winds may flow in a different direction, and that might be what drives it, but that happens in both directions, and usually, I'm sure if there was a lot of controversy in the other way of what might be put in the public schools, and the other group that thinks that this isn't a problem right now would be pushing for the exact same thing. So, that's where it comes from, and where people are really driving to get the transparency into the school. Now that's into the school and what's being taught to kids, what's going on with teachers, etc. I'm going to lose this microphone, I think, in a second, but it keeps dropping on me.
Gentlemen, is there a way to fix?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you, sir.
So, just think about it from that standpoint. Now, I'm not for or against it, but that's a, basic issue with a lot of the politics right now with, the entire country. So, general comment on that. Second one, and maybe it's just because I'm not an English major and I'm good at numbers, should there be a question mark at the end of this? Is that how it's written?
Yes.
Okay. I'm an engineer.
English major.
Forget it. Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Can I address that real quick? And I really appreciate the question about transparency. And we did talk about this when we deliberated on our recommendation. And if the spirit behind this article is concern over transparency in the classroom, over inappropriate teaching, all of things like that, we actually made sure that we have policies to address that. So any parent that has a concern about something that a teacher is doing in the classroom, there's a process that a parent can appeal or point that out. So if that's the spirit behind this article, the board felt as though it was just an unnecessary article because we do have policies that address that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, one final word on the wording of recommendations and such. Obviously, the school board is going to go through all the petition warrant articles and change the wording of how they recommend it. I would just like to ask that you also change the wording of the Finance Committee recommendations the same way. That only affects Article 3, but still, thank you.
Further discussion on Article 9? Hearing none, we'll close it and move to Article 10. That's a long one. What time is it? Shall the Brookline School District hereby affirm our support for each student's growth and enrichment? In doing so, we, the legislative body, hereby state the following as general principles. The Brookline School District values all students as individuals and welcomes students of all races. B, we affirm that no race or sex is inherently superior or inferior to another race or sex. No individual or group, by virtue of race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive consciously or unconsciously. No individual or group shall be discriminated against or receive preferential treatment based on race or sex. Each person should be treated and respected as a unique individual without respect to race, sex, political, or religious affiliation. An individual's moral character shall not be assumed because of race or sex. Each individual is responsible for his or her own actions. Assignment of fault, blame, bias, or accusations of oppression upon individuals, races, or sexes due to the actions of others in the present or in the past is unjust. Virtues such as punctuality, accountability, and hard work are not racist, nor were they created by a particular race or sex to oppress another race or sex. The Brookline School shall provide equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, to each of our students, regardless of race, sex, national origin, religion, or disability. Therefore, we, the legislative body of the Brookline School District, with our vote, hereby direct that these principles be incorporated into the relevant policies, resolutions, and curricula of our school district. The school board recommends this article. 050. Discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Kelly Zacher, Cider Mill Road. I would like to suggest several amendments to this article.
That's great, and you're entitled to do that one at a time, but be merciful.
I will. Okay. So the first amendment that I would like to propose would be to bullet A. After the word races, I would add the language. Sorry, let me get to my right page of notes. So that it will read, the Brookline School District values all students as individuals and welcomes students of all races, ethnicities, gender identities, religions.
Oh, too fast. We got to write it down. Do it again. Races. Now you're
races, ethnicities, gender identities, religions, physical and intellectual abilities, socioeconomic status, and sexual orientation.
We have it. You heard it. Is there a second to that motion to amend? There's a second. Let's have discussion on that motion to amend. Its merits or demerits, please. Yes, you have to approach a mic, ma'am.
I want to compare my list. So I had written down race, ethnicity, skin color, religion, gender orientation, gender identity. I did national origin twice, I think. physical or mental ability or disability.
I'll tell you what, if you two guys are working together, you need to sit down, do that, and come back and tell us if you're going to do a joint thing.
Oh, okay.
Because you made a motion, it was seconded, and that's, if you're going to change it, I'm going to ask you to withdraw it. So get to work and we'll keep talking. Okay.
Right. I have a technical question here. Is this being a petitioned warrant article, are we allowed to change the wordings of it?
You are indeed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just like any article.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good question, and I should have said that.
Oh, sure, I was gonna withdraw.
Okay. So before we get into this, we have a lot of policies and procedures on this. We had a D&I committee the entire year. I'm sorry, Ken Haig, Hobart Hill Road. Thank you. A lot of policies and procedures already in place in this. We had a D&I committee the entire year. I feel like we've already settled this, and we're opening up a can of worms unnecessarily here. My recommendation would be to move forward with, if you want to reword it, the school board opposed it, and we have fall back on our policies, procedures, and D&I that's already in place, as opposed to creating a new thing, a new subset, a new warrant article that we're going to have to follow on top of everything else. Thanks.
Oh, geez, I don't know what to do now.
So you understand this body doesn't have the power to disapprove this. It goes forward on the ballot.
I do understand that. It does go forward to the ballot. I guess we can do this if we want to do this. My point is, I would suggest we get the word out and vote no to this as opposed to creating this tonight. But again, open to whatever we want. I just think adding another layer on top of all of the policies, procedures, and everything else we have in place is going to be very cumbersome.
Jessica Hartman, 51 Mountain Road. So just to clarify, Ken, what we're saying is the Brookline School District does care about diversity and inclusion, and we already have policies and procedures in place to make sure that we are considering those things when we are creating our policy, how we talk to our students, what we're doing within our school district. So we already have a process in place to consider diversity and inclusion, making this somewhat redundant and maybe changing it, but we have a process in place is what you're saying, and that we care about it.
Correct. We have all this in place, and I understand the intent, and I don't dispute that. And if we want to do that, by all means, we can do that certainly tonight. We have this mechanism in place. That's why why I voted against it, because it's going to add a layer of complexity unnecessarily because of all of the policies, processes, procedures in place, as well as a D&I committee that's already made their recommendation. And I think on top of that, most of this is advisory as well.
And I would say, I thank you for that clarification. And based on what you recommend, I would agree with you that if this came onto the ballot, I would vote against it based on the fact that we are a school district that does care about diversity and inclusion. So I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. Now, technically, we're talking about the motion to amend, which, no, I could have cut you off, but we're good. We should, however, if I'm being a good moderator, say what we're talking about is the motion to amend, which is on the floor, which was once created, and then I'm not sure where it went.
So I would.
Are you withdrawing your motion to amend? And replacing with another motion to amend?
Or can I amend the amendment?
It'd be easier if you just started from scratch.
Okay. I'll
So withdraw your motion to amend. Your new motion to amend, having consulted with your agent there,
yes,
is?
So it would read now that the Brookline School District values all students as individuals and welcomes students of all races.
Callie, there's no way that she can write that fast. Are you good?
What's already in there?
Oh, you have it in front of you. Oh, you're reading what's in the article? Sorry, love.
And after the word races would add skin color, ethnicities, nation of origin, gender identity, religion, physical and intellectual abilities, socioeconomic status, and sexual orientation.
Where did you lose her? You have it on paper?
I do have it on
Oh,
paper.
beautiful. If you'd give that to her, please. Thank you. Pardon me? We have a new motion, and it is what Kelly has spoken. The clerk is getting it down. Is there a second to that motion? There is, so yes, please.
So I respect Chairman Hagg's explanation. However, this Article 10 is going to be on our ballot regardless of what action we take tonight. And if this amendment passes, I would have further amendments to propose, which may include striking some of the bullets, so that when our governmental body here goes to the polls on March 8th, they'll be voting for an affirmative I'm trying to think of the word.
Principles?
An affirmation of the value that we as a school district put on the diversity and differences that exist in our student body, in our community.
Thank you. So that was a discussion in favor of the motion. We have to act on the motion. Are you going to speak to the motion to amend as Kelly has proposed one for your consideration? It'd be good if you stop then. Let's act on that.
I would like to.
Please.
I think it's a...
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Chris Cospido, 5 Birch Drive.
Thank you.
I think it's a well-intentioned idea. I don't think wasting a lot of time on a politically motivated recommendation that really is couched political language made to sound like it's the school board is doing anybody any good. We have to know what this is. We can't dress it up as something else. It's wasting everybody's time. This is a script that's being passed out, and changing it to be pretty doesn't do anybody any good. It wastes a bunch of time. So I would say no thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for your comments. This is on the motion to amend.
Yeah, Eric Power, Westview Road. I would just ask a kind of a procedural question. If we change a warrant article in a way like this or the other warrant article, does the school board re-vote on a recommendation whether they like it or not, or are they sticking with the recommendation they've already put forward if the article's been changed?
Board, you're going to have to answer that one, if you understand the question.
I thought under post-deliberation session that if there was an article that was amended, the school board takes another vote on the article to see if they still have the same vote.
We will re-vote after this hearing ends this evening.
If there's an amendment. Okay, thank you.
So it'll be on the ballot.
Will reflect the most current.
What will be on the ballot will be the language that this legislative body approves.
Oh, I don't know. We're going to figure that out too.
Okay.
But yeah, we will vote at the end of the deliberative session on any changed articles that impact the recommendation.
There's always kind of two worlds. You guys get to do what you want to do. What the recipient is going to do with it sometimes is an entirely different point. But you have certain powers. You can make a statement. You can be wrong. You can make it illegal. But you can make it. So you have the power to fashion this in any way you wish. But I gather the board will do their thing on their own. So.
Can I just say a little more to that? And this may be reinforcing what Ken said to some extent. I think on principle, the challenge that the board faces with an article like this is we prefer to deliberate this sort of thing over the course of a board meeting and have ourselves put the article on the warrant. As a citizen's petition, the precedent of kind of giving us something that we look at for the first time, that's based on, especially like in this case with the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations that we've been talking about all year, we really want to be able to take the time to have the discussion and see something on the warrant that we have, that we've carefully considered and deliberated. So this body is not the optimal time for us to be deliberating that for the first time. So the challenge for our vote will be in sticking with sort of that principle that we've had with regard to some of these warrants, which is we've talked about this throughout the course of the year to set a precedent where we can show up and put something, on here tonight and then have to make that decision. It's going to be hard. So that's sort of what we face at the end of this conversation. I absolutely appreciate the spirit of the emotions that this article has generated, and the body can do whatever you want with it. That's fine. But when we deliberate, we have some kind of our own principles that we sort of follow with regards to this as a citizen's petition.
I don't think we've, correct me if I'm wrong, have we acted on the motion to amend? I know we had a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion to amend to add the language which Kelly has recommended we add to this? All right. Then all those in favor of doing so, raise your voting card. All those opposed to doing so, raise your voting card. It's a vote in the negative, so the motion to amend is defeated. Yes, ma'am.
I guess now that we're not amending, and I was super excited to talk about sex because it comes up like 50 times in this warrant. It does.
I'm sorry?
No race or sex. Race or sex, yeah, I was super excited to talk about that. But, so some of the phrasing, just who is this legislative body?
You.
Me?
You.
Me?
Yeah, they're the governing body. You're like a little legislature making laws.
Okay. Okay, because I don't remember like participating in this as part of the legislative body. So I don't know.
Right now.
But I didn't draft this.
Right now, you are.
Okay, so what does that mean to be part of the legislative body then?
It means you make the laws like
Okay.
our legislature does. Here's the governor.
Okay, but we just said that this was more of a recommendation, not a, so, right, this is a recommendation, I'm not part of a, so what's the difference between making a recommendation as a citizen versus being a legislative body?
The recommendation has been formally accepted by the majority of the people in the room at the time of the hearing, and at that point becomes a decision of everybody because it's a majority decision.
So who is the, okay. So I don't know who the legislative body is, still don't know, okay. If by some set of circumstances this passes, things happen, what is the implication? Well, no, this has come up. This is it's a zombie article. It's come up more times already than I care to count. I want to know what happens if it passes.
Well, you can ask.
I am asked, but
pardon, one at a time, ma'am.
Hmm?
We talk one at a time.
Sorry.
We cannot answer for all people.
Okay.
Would you like the board to tell you how they will react to it?
Well, if that's who is supposed to, yes.
They can only speak
Okay.
for
But
the
that's,
board.
and I think that in terms of, amending, the spirit of amending is in a world where potentially something like this passes, it passes in the spirit that actually benefits students, teachers, administrators, para-administrators, janitors, parents. And so I think that's the risk that I think people worry about, is on the one hand, it feels like a BS article. On the other hand, if it passes, there are implications. And that's what I really, really am worried about, and that is really what I want to understand.
Very fair. Would anyone like to address the young lady's concern?
Oh, you called me young.
If the article were to pass, I would bring it back to the sitting board at that time, and the sitting board would have a discussion about what they want to do. Right now, as the attorney stated, it's an advisory article. We hear there's contention in the state legislature, so it would be something I would recommend you follow from the state point of view as well.
I've seen some of the state information, it's scary.
If the board, the sitting board, were to decide to go forward, we would work to develop and work with our policies to implement this. If the sitting board were to decide that this is something advisory in nature and to remain with their existing policies, they could do that. There may be a legal challenge to that, and I'm sure that that would get settled in the courts at some point in the future.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Ma'am, gentleman behind you. Thank you.
Web Scales, Dubois Gold Road. I would like to make the same motion for this article that I made for the last one. Hopefully you can just draw an arrow to it. But in substance, I would like to insert the magic phrase about it being advisory and non-binding at the same spot. I move.
All right, is everybody content with what the gentleman, you understand what the gentleman's proposing? If anybody's not sure, and that's okay to be not sure, we'll read it. Everybody's got a handle on it? Okay, is there a second on it? There are seconds all over the place. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of that motion amendment, thank you. Opposed to that motion amendment, thank you. It's voted the affirmative. The amendment passes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Kelly Zacher, Cider Mill Road. I'm not making any more amendments. I just want to speak on this petition warrant article, which is verbatim the language of House Bill 2 in the state of New Hampshire. So as Mr. Power said earlier, there's already a law about something in regard to something's already been done at the State House. We don't need to do it at the town level. So I would like to just reiterate that I don't understand why our legislative body as a school district of the town of Brookline needs to vote on something to enforce something that's already local when we're already superseded by state law. The other thing that I wanted to point out was that in bullet point I, it says the Brookline schools shall provide equality of opportunity. However, some of the same petitioners who signed this document questioned whether or not we needed to have an elevator in RMMS, which directly counters equality of opportunity.
Further discussion on Article 10. Who's that woman? Someone restrain her. So we pass on 10, move on to 11. Shall the Brookline School District rescind authorization under RSA 1984B, Roman numeral 2, so that the Brookline School District returns 100% of the year-end unassigned general funds to the taxpayers? The school board recommends this article. Any discussion?
Good. Hi, Ken Haig, Hobart Hill. So this one, this amendment was personally quite frustrating to me since we passed this last year as a town body, and we're immediately trying to strike it. From a personal level, that's my feedback there. From a school board standpoint, we talked about spirit of the warrant in our last meeting, and to me, the spirit of this is transparency around what we're using these funds for, and now that we no longer have contingency and we have this, I think as a board, we talking about a policy for this coming year that goes through a public hearing process to use these funds. And I can certainly appreciate that so that that's documented and transparent to the community. So personally, I'll be on the school board for a few more years. This is something I want to look at, but as far as written today, I am very much opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Bertie McFarland, Pigeon Hill Road. I guess my question is just to the Finance Committee. Would there be any benefit? It doesn't seem like there'd be any benefit since we're already looking at upping the budget each year, that it would just be putting money back and then asking for it again. Kind of like a round robin or something, I don't know. But is there any benefit to something like this as it's written?
Potentially, there could be a benefit to the taxpayers because, as it stands right now, when the school ends the fiscal year and they have some funds left over, in the past they've always had to return all of that to the town, which goes to offset taxes. But now they're allowed to keep some of it for contingency purposes, really. So if they were not allowed to keep those funds, then whatever funds were left over at the end of the year would go back to the town to offset taxes. However, before we had this in place, what we would do is every year we had a warrant article here to provide them with contingency fund. And that fund came from that same pool of money. So essentially, we were just giving them money every year, but we'd vote on it here at town meeting, that they would be able to keep over from year to year. And with this mechanism, they have a built-in mechanism. We don't vote on it each year, but then we don't have quite as much control over it. So as a practical matter, it doesn't, it comes down to whether or not we have this discussion each year in a separate warrant article, or if they just keep their blanket ability to do this.
Okay, so we already voted on this last year to allow them to put these funds into the contingency fund, and then the items that are actually covered in the contingency fund are voted on. No, they're not voted on. Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Sorry,
I couldn't quite hear what you were saying there at the end.
So these funds, if they go into the contingency fund, the school board decides what they're used for within the budget the following year.
Yes. We'll let the superintendent address that.
This is an unreserved fund balance, not a contingency, so they're separate.
Okay.
What this allows the board to do is set aside a certain dollar amount, and for those funds to be utilized, we hold a public hearing and we detail to the board and the community what those funds would be utilized for. So it would be something that was not expected to happen during the budget. Maybe enrollment went up and we need another teacher. Maybe something breaks in the terms of a boiler or something like that. This is the school board safety net for the funds.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I understood that this is really just trying to undo something that we've already voted on. Thank you.
No, these are complicated things. Ask until you understand.
Right. And so if you look back for a few years, we've had special ed fund, a maintenance trust fund, and then this contingency fund, typically for $40,000 for the contingency. And what this does now is it allocates money from the bottom line up to 2%, I believe is our number, maybe it's 1%, that goes into this unreserved fund balance that we can call upon. So we're not asking for a $40,000 contingency every year now. Anything that rolls to the bottom line will go here that's not refunded to the taxpayer. So again, I think from a spirit of transparency, there's an opportunity there, which we recognize from this. But as we talked about, this was just passed last year where we moved from contingency fund, which is why I nodded my head, because contingency and unreserved fund balance, the lingo is important to understand the difference. Thanks.
Tom Soul on Shady Rock Road. One of the benefits of doing it through this mechanism that's being proposed to be rescinded versus a contingency is the timeliness and the ability for both the board and the community to understand how the money's being spent. When you put a contingency in place, it's a guess, it's a what if. The mechanism by which funds are expended through the retention of a fund balance, as superintendent specified, involves a hearing, that offers a detailed list, and it's not an arbitrary expenditure or anticipated expenditure. The downside, if you want to call it that, is that it's a bigger amount than is typically supported on a contingency. But if you look at the typical budgets that take place in our communities, with the exception of the COVID periods, we've run really tight budgets with very little opportunity to have this amount of money for unplanned activities. And we do have a lot of surprises, especially with the older buildings. So the contingency has been required to stay safe. This is proven to be an easier mechanism. In most cases, it saves time because you don't have to have the warrant article every year and discuss it and figure an amount. It's a repeatable process that works better for the board in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion under Article 11? Seeing none, we'll close and we'll move on to Article 12. Shall the Brookline School District, pursuant to RSA 194C, Roman numeral 1, or maybe it's an L, I think it's an L, maybe it's a 1, create a planning committee to study the advisability of the withdrawal of the Brookline School District from SAU 41 in accordance with RSA 194C2 Roman numeral 41 for its organization, operation, and control, and the advisability of constructing, maintaining, and operating a school administrative unit to serve the needs of the Brookline School District. The school board recommends this article. Discussion. Does this mean, folks, you guys didn't vote on this yet? This XXX? Yeah. But you don't recommend?
We do not recommend. This was a petition warrant from 6 o'clock today in the library where we met, and it does not recommend 050. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, further discussion, folks. Yes, sir.
Eric Power, Westview Road. I heard some discussion after the public hearing today, and it made me think there might be some misunderstanding on what the purpose of this article is. The article is really to take and create a new SAU for the Brookline School District. It doesn't take us out of the co-op. It's not withdrawing from the co-op. It's not a grade reduction. It's just simply creating an SAU for the Brookline School District that would then be under that superintendent and a business administrator. It's not a withdrawal, and there were some comments made that this was getting out of the co-op and downplaying it. It's really just what is the SAU unit that oversees the district? How is that going to work? And this is exploring that to oversee the Brookline School District, and it's a study. So that's I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. Yes, sir. Someone give him a shove.
With Webb Scales, DuPaul Gould Road. With respect to the comments of Mr. Power, I'm trying to process what he just explained because it was not my understanding of what this article was intended to do. And more to the point, I'm trying to imagine how we would have two SAUs administering well, I mean, I can see how our SAU would administer our schools, but we're in a co-op, and I'm trying to figure out how our SAU would coordinate with the other SAU to administer the co-op schools.
So you'd have two SAUs for the same school?
Yeah, I guess.
Would you come up, please?
Occasionally in New Hampshire, there's a new SAU created. As there was a new one created, I think it was SAU 55, and I think Bob Thompson became the superintendent of that, if I'm correct. There was a withdrawal of one school district from another, creating an SAU. This would be if this study committee found that it was suitable and it made sense, it would recommend there would be an SAU for the Brookline School District, which would oversee the Brookline School District, and SAU 41 would have the Hollis School District and the co-op. There wouldn't be any contention there. That would be the clear line of responsibility.
And so to complete that thought, we would be discussing the Brookline Elementary School's withdrawal from the co-op, and they would be joining this new SAU.
I'm sorry, sir, would you say that again, please?
If we were to form an SAU to administer the Brookline School's physical plants, then necessarily they would be administering the students that are in those plants. And so therefore, those students would no longer be part of the co-op.
Co-op?
The cooperative.
Yes, you began by speaking of the elementary school system, and then you moved into the co-op. Mr. Powers, are you talking about an advisor SAU that would only deal with the elementary school?
That would be correct. The Brookline School District pre-K to 6 would be under the new SAU, whatever it would be, the new SAU 105, or whatever you want to call it. And SAU 41 would have the co-op. The students would still go to the co-op from Brookline, as they do today. That wouldn't change. It would just be that the governance of the Brookline School District pre-K to 6 would be in the new SAU.
Thank you, sir. Good, Webb?
So we would, in essence, be withdrawing our K through 6 from the co-op. And in the process,
Why do you say co-op? The co-op
Sorry, you're right. No,
okay.
Absolutely. Not the co-op, from the SAU.
Yes.
From the common governance of our 6 schools.
Yes.
And so my concern is that in doing so, we would lose economies of scale in terms of purchasing and the food service, the ability to share subs between the buildings, the ability to share staff between the buildings. I don't think we would be benefiting from the split. We would have to instantiate our own set of superintendent's offices and special education support and all the services that we currently get from the SAU. And it's possible that it would be cheaper, but it seems like a long odds. So I would be opposed to this.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Some of us a little bit shorter than Mr. Scales. Allison Marsano, Laurel Crest. So I just want to make sure I understand the idea here. So now instead of paying for one SAU, I'm going to pay for 2? So like
Mr. Powers, is she right on that?
2 superintendents and 2 assistant superintendents and. But wait.
Okay, I
just want to make sure I understand this.
There would be two SAUs. The SAUs would obviously, the SAU 41 would hopefully get smaller. I know that I'd laugh at that too, but it would have to, be smaller. Brookline would, there's certain services that an SAU has to provide, and it's in the RSAs. My opinion is that that we're doing more than we should be doing in SAU 41, and I think it's time for Brookline to look at doing a streamlined one, and we'll see what happens after that. But it's a first step. This is a study to see what that means. And this was done over in Timberlane. It was done over and successfully by the citizens there. They did the study and they were pleasantly surprised and they voted for it and it passed. And that's where Bob Thompson got his job. So just something to think about.
Because we've brought that example up a few times, I just want to let the citizens know, I've spoken to Bob. It costs Hampstead, the brand new SAU with 2 buildings, about 1,000 kids, $1.1 million. We charge you $407,000.
That sounds like a lot less.
Madame?
Okay.
Good. Anybody else? Any comments on Article 12? Yes, sir.
Just Christopher Henchy, Pigeon Hill Road. I do have a point of concern that if we were to create another SAU here in Brookline, that our non-competitive funding of how we're going to actually pay people and our proposed plan of not actually keeping up with inflation, I don't think that it will be a good idea, since we won't be able to actually hire anybody on the proposed budget, that we'll probably have to pay them.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ken Haig, Hobart Hill. I guess my last piece, I'm very much opposed to this. I would hope that we could stop bringing this to the ballot every year as well. We've seen this, I've been on the school board for 7 years, I think it's come up almost every year. The towns don't want this. The studies show it doesn't make any sense. The cost per pupil is lower than the state average. Our test scores are higher than the state average. We talk about a compliance position earlier. This is the cost that drives why we have extra staff, because of these yearly requests for these onerous activities. And I think there's a lot of fatigue coming from everyone for the constant push for this. We have a great school district. Let's work together to make it better instead of trying to tear it apart. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further comments on Article 12? Seeing none, we'll call it a night. These will be all brought forward. Yes, Dana's going to come up to the mic, but these will all be brought forward, and you'll be voting on them on March 8th.
Hi, Dana Ketchum. I just have a question. First of all, I've sat on the Finance Committee. There's no microphones. I'm curious why everybody had to get up. So it seemed more convenient with microphones. I was unable to locate a copy of this. It said in the website that they would be at the town hall or the post office. We didn't have any in the Brookline Town Hall. Do you know where copies of this are for people who may be interested?
I know it's on the SAU website.
Well, I saw it on the SAU website, and then my copy here was sort of stapled together backwards, so I'm having a little trouble focusing on it. My question is simply this. If the budget and all the warrant articles pass, what is the increase, projected increase in the budget percentage? Does the board have an answer for that?
Her question is, if everything is approved as, just a sec, Eric, I need you to come to the mic.
It's in the slides. If they want to go back, they can show you the numbers. If somebody has, I don't know who's controlling the slides, but you can go back to the beginning.
Is a clicker there next to it?
Well, somebody's doing it.
Okay. Doing it.
Our business administrator will show us. She's probably the one that helped put it together or did put it together.
Into the mic.
I was at another meeting.
9.7% increase. I don't think it was shown at the meeting actually today. It was online though. Just a couple slides. Right there.
There it is.
Oh,
Back.
go back.
All right, I was a little back.
9.7.
You good?
That includes the warrant articles?
Enrico, question?
That includes all the warrant articles. That's the piece I need to know. I think you did a
Thank
good
you very
job
much.
with the budget, and that's what, I mean, it's tough to continue to live in this town as an older person with tax increases at that rate going on and on and on. I saw somebody at the post office today, a friend of mine who's selling their house, and it makes me sad so that's.
Well, that was kind of off agenda a little bit. Anybody want to speak to the other side so we can even that out?
Other
No.
side, what was the topic?
I let it go
Yeah.
when I probably shouldn't have. But point well taken. Yes, sir. Would you have something to PS this meeting with?
I just wanted to point out that the changes in the tax rate that were calculated there also include changes in estimated revenue. So a lot of the estimated revenue is estimated to go down, but estimates that vary a lot from year to year too. So it's not all increases in expenses.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, raise your voting card. All those opposed who want to, you can just stay behind. We're leaving. Thank you.